Welcome back to DK Sports Radio. You're listening to the Miller Lite Q&A podcast. I'm Chris Carter here with Matt Grubba, taking on your questions. Now, Matt, we're starting off in my territory. You have a question in mind?
Yeah, we've got a question, one that I think you already saw because I see a response here, but let's get a little more in depth with it. Michael J. Replied to your story about Artie Burns and the Steelers. Said, first of all, he says he really enjoys your breakdowns, but the question is, how does Artie's press coverage compare to that of Joe Haden? Of course, Joe Haden, former Pro Bowler for the Steelers, and Artie Burns, hopefully, I'm sure the Steelers want to see him get to that level. So, yeah, make that comparison for us.
Well, so the thing is that Joe Haden is a guy that doesn't use his hands too often when he presses. I mean, he does occasionally, but one thing I've seen Joe Haden get really used to is when he sits and when he presses someone, he's like in front of them, and he just tries to mirror you and cut off where you're going, and more so uses his hands to go out in the direction that you want to go instead of trying to jam you and put it in your chest. Artie Burns is a guy that he uses that front hand. He jabs you. He tries to force you backwards and try to cancel your first step so that he can get ahead of you in that way. That's where, honestly, a lot of battles are won as a cornerback is in that first few steps. Where do you go? Now, in the article, I talk about the basics. There's three fundamentals that you want as a cornerback when you're in press coverage. The first is one, your feet. You want to make sure that often you want to take away the inside shoulder of that receiver. So you want your outside foot being right in the middle of the player's legs. So like say if you're covering a guy and the sideline is to your right and you guys are split outside the numbers, you want your foot to be right in between his, and that way, because your goal as a cornerback, you want to force them to the sideline, because when you force a corner receiver to the sideline, if the quarterback is going to throw, it has to now go past you, and that makes a tighter passing window. The second part are your hands. You want your hands not up in your face and not at your chest, but you want them ready and active for if the receiver tries to come at you. You want them to, one, either go in, like what Joe Haden does, go in the direction of where the receiver is going to go and try to shield them and get you an advantage, or you want to use it to jab them like Artie Burns does. And sort of get that pressure on and say you're not getting off this line as easily as you think. And then the last but not least is your eyes. And you want to be, have a good defensive stance, with an even base. Make sure that you have your full center of gravity and you can't be toppled over easily, and you're ready to go into backpedal. But your eyes, they need to be faced right at the bottom of the jersey numbers, because you don't want to get faked out with a head fake or the feet, because the farther out of the limbs you go, that's where I can, as a receiver, I can do whatever I want and still go in the direction that I'm going to go. But the hips do not lie, as Shakir would tell you. So, but literally, I mean, that's in all sports. When I'm guarding someone in basketball, watch the hips.
That's what I was just going to make the comparison. First of all, I want to paint the picture for our listeners is that as he was describing those three things, Carter is in here. He's actually jamming an imaginary person off the line. The lamp in our studio is now getting pushed to the sideline. No, but yeah, what you're saying, especially with what Haden does well about using his feet to sort of win that battle off the line. I mean, it sounds like you're playing man-to-man defense in basketball. It sounds like, to make a soccer comparison, you're marking a guy on a free kick, that you're winning that battle moving your legs. You're not playing defense with your hands, clutching, grabbing, that sort of thing. That by getting your feet in position, the handwork is sort of secondary in where you finish the job. Yeah,
exactly. And the thing is that you still need your hands to win those battles, but you absolutely, footwork is so important. And that's where, honestly, you can have one of the fastest people in the NFL, but if you can't get into a smooth back pedal and you can't mirror where a receiver is going, and that it's tricky. If you think about it, try running backwards. Now try running backwards and going in different directions. Now trying to combine all of that with where a receiver's going and what your responsibilities are in a defense, and trying to take away what routes you think are coming. That's what Joe Haden has gotten used to. He doesn't need to jam you because he's so smooth in his drop back and in changing directions and keeping up with guys. He presents small windows, and that's what Burns is really getting good at. He's being able to not just anticipate you, but also be able to press you and stick with you. Now, he still has his mistakes. Like, one of the common things I do see that Artie Burns, his cardinal sin, is when he's at the line of scrimmage. Often you want your first step to be in the direction you're going, or a step backwards to get your back pedal going. What he will often do is he will jump and his feet will spread, and when you spread your feet like that, it feels natural, and it feels like that's what you're supposed to do in basketball. But when you waste that movement, that is time that you need to be spending getting ready, because when you do that, if the receiver gets the first step they want, you're in trouble. So there's still some things he needs to work out. But again, that was his first full year as a starter, and he's 23 years old.
Exactly. Yeah, that's another thing that translates to any sport, though. Taking that false step you're talking about. I mean, even within football, I mean, that's something that they teach punters and kickers not to take an extra step. As they come with their delivery and that sort of thing. And so for a defensive back who's got to run with a receiver that's running a 4-4, 4-3 across from him, you take that one false step, that one false move, and you're toast.
Well, thank you for the question. We'll be right back answering more of your questions here on the Miller Lite Q&A podcast.
Miller Lite is the original light beer, and we'll always brew it to have more taste, with only 96 calories and 3.2 carbs. Because we believe that if you compromise on taste, you can taste the compromise. Miller Lite. Hold true.
Great beer, great responsibility. 2018 Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Average analysis, 12 fluid ounces. Less than 1 gram protein, 0 grams fat.
If you're one of the thousands of Western Pennsylvanians who love to get outdoors, then you need to check out this cool new website, stepoutside.org. Learn where, when, and how you can go camping, hiking, or hunting. Or take part in power sports, shooting sports, or water sports in your local community or across the country at stepoutside.org, where everything you need to know is just a click away. That's stepoutside.org.
What I want from my public accounting firm is big ideas.
But I don't want to lose the personal attention.
My company needs global capabilities.
From a firm with local ownership.
And I want to work with industry experts
who take the time to understand my unique challenges. And that's what sets Schneider Downs apart. Expertise for the most complex business issues, with the service you need every day. To learn how our big thinking with a personal focus can help your company, visit schneiderdowns.com.
Injured in an accident? Need assistance in preserving your business's interests? Let the attorneys at Bassey, Vreeland & Associates protect your legal rights. For over 65 years, Bassey, Vreeland & Associates has been representing the citizens and businesses of southwestern Pennsylvania. With offices strategically located in Washington and Charleroi, Bassey, Vreeland & Associates can deliver results for you throughout the Pittsburgh area. Visit www.bmvlaw.com or call 724-228-7000 to see how Bassey, Vreeland & Associates can meet your legal needs. Bassey, Vreeland & Associates. We fight, we care, we win.
All right, welcome back to the Miller Lite Q&A. I am Matt Grubba, alongside Chris Carter. And Chris, you're going to kick the second question for today to me, aren't you?
Yes, we have Brew asking you a question, specifically on the Pitt-Penn State relationship and their history. He said for a long time he wanted to see Pitt and Penn State play yearly, but he thinks it's time for Pitt to stop catering to Penn State and to quit playing them in all sports. Instead, scheduling other Power 5 schools that would be an interesting draw, help boost the recruiting base of Pitt, play a team that's in their conference and that beats them, meaning the Big Ten, and a team that beats Penn State, which would be interesting. Possibly bringing back the backyard brawl with West Virginia. And essentially getting rid of the mindset that Pitt needs Penn State to succeed, and just wondering what's the drive to force this game to happen other than the history, and what's a good replacement plan, because as we know now, Pitt's not going to be playing Penn State in football for quite some time.
Yeah, through 2030 at the earliest,
That's
they said. There's
a
lot of layers to that question too. It's starting out with the football aspect of it. I don't think it's right to say Pitt is catering to Penn State. Of course, I think it's right that Pitt wants to give Penn State the first choice to be on Pitt's schedule. And now it seems like they're refusing the offer that Heather Lyke made about getting the series restarted in 2027, which was already going to be a long gap for it, with Penn State saying that that's not an offer they want to take. Pitt can do just fine getting other Power 5 teams on there. That's why Heather Lyke said it's like the offer's only out there for so long because Pitt's got to take care of Pitt, regardless of what Penn State wants to do. And there are options, West Virginia being, first and foremost in my mind. The possibility of getting that rebooted is certainly going to be out there. I mean, I think Penn State and West Virginia have a couple of games coming up, but it's not an ongoing thing. So once Penn State drops off West Virginia's schedule, why not bring back the backyard brawl in a more permanent sense? That would be just as good at the gate for Pitt in terms of the games at Heinz Field. You know it's going to sell out for that. I think that Pitt has plenty of options, and if not, look, Pitt's had home and homes the last couple of years with Oklahoma State. They've got some quality opponents coming down the pipeline. Of course, with the deal with the ACC, Pitt can't negotiate really on their own to get Notre Dame the way they used to, but they will still play the Fighting Irish a few times every few years. So Pitt has plenty of options, and they've just got to make their move now. And you're right, they can't cater to Penn State. They can't wait on them, but they got to get it moving. Give
me a big-name school you realistically think they could add to the schedule in the next few years that would really bust things open for them.
I don't know necessarily it needs to be a huge name, big name school. I would really love to see Pitt get a home and home going with a Pac-12 school, a West Coast school.
That would be
of some sort of name. Whether it's I know Cal's been on hard times recently, but maybe Cal or Stanford. I mean, hey, maybe kick the tires on a UCLA or somebody like that. I mean, USC would be tough because they're a program that always has the Notre Dame game. They have some pretty set route. Yeah, let's see if one of those will come out here. Even Oregon is a program. You got the Nike tie-in. Pitt and Oregon are both Nike schools, and Oregon's been on some hard times in the last few years, some lean years. I think I saw somebody post, just comparing the schools. Pitt has a better record over the last 3 years than Oregon, which I didn't realize.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought about that either.
So there are definitely options out there. That's something just throwing it out there. I'd like to see. There's also other Big 12 schools besides West Virginia who sometimes I even forget they're in the Big 12 still.
Right, but it's still so wild that
so there are plenty of options. I mean, Pitt had Oklahoma State. Look for some of those others. In terms of the other parts of that question about sort of cutting off ties with Penn State, I really don't think that's a good idea because, number one, it is still a great rivalry, and I think Pitt should still embrace, when Penn State comes around and realizes, hey, maybe having 8 home games a year or whatever they're after isn't quite as important as having a marquee rival on our schedule. But the other part with the smaller programs is these aren't teams that the budgets are huge. And having Penn State, another Power 5 conference, another major conference program in every sport. I mean, they generally don't wrestle each other anymore in the duel, but still you've got, soccer, baseball, softball. They all get in their Penn State game because these schools don't have the budgets to fly around the country and do stuff like that. When they can get, Pitt softball also plays Ohio State. They played a couple of weeks ago because you want to get those other power conference teams in with minimal travel. You play those games in the middle of the week. And so, Pitt and Penn State still have a healthy relationship, maybe not the fans as much as certainly the administrations with Sandy Barber and Heather Like. So from that aspect, I think Pitt and Penn State still do one another a very good service because of their proximity, because of the history, and it's unfortunate Penn State made that decision in football. I think long term they might come to regret it because who's to say the teams that they're picking, over the – Auburn won a national championship with Cam Newton back there, but Auburn's also had some 4-8 seasons within memory that we can have.
They occasionally do drop off the map.
So who's to say that's going to be a great game for them down the road anyway? But hey, that's just my take on it. You any thoughts just as a guy growing up around that rivalry?
Oh, my mom was a Pitt. My mom was a Pitt person. My aunt was a Penn State person. They used to. When my sister was born, they sent my aunt sent her a Penn State cheerleading outfit as a Halloween thing, and my mom sent one back, a picture of her in a Pitt outfit. So the friendly rivalry has existed in my family. I've seen it over the years. I used to always think that the Pitt Penn State game was so cool, seeing those two teams play against each other. It just seems odd that they can't make this work because it seems so simple. It would cost nothing in travel. It would be an easy game. You're both playing another team that's in a major conference. It just makes the most sense. But yeah, if Penn State doesn't want to play ball, if they want to jerk around, Pitt right now is in a position where they're up and coming. Narduzzi's been doing a lot with the program. Go football wise, go and get your big name team that you want to play and challenge somebody that can put you on the map if you beat them in a big early season game, and then you're going into the ACC with some momentum. And if you lose to them, then you lose to a big team instead of a little team. So I'm definitely on the side of that. As far as the other programs, I don't know about shutting off Penn State because, like you said, that's an easy budget saving move to have them on the calendar. But yeah, football wise, who needs you, man? Like yeah, Penn State, you've had your comeback times, but Pitt, has to be thinking about Pitt, not thinking about Penn State,
right.
and what that could be. I think that they have a lot of talent. I think Narduzzi's turning the program around enough. And that he's been getting some players in there, and I think over the next few years, you might see him make even more of a claim to his for his reputation. So absolutely, go get somebody. Maybe get your own SEC opponent. Yeah. Pac-12 I think would be very interesting. It's enticing. You're trying to think where could they make a stab in a recruiting area and say where could they start putting their name out and stealing people from. So.
Certainly. Hey, that's you look at Pitt's schedule this year. Central Florida on there.
Yeah,
throw that one out there, right? That in their own minds, the defending national
champions,
the only undefeated team.
I love that banner that they put together.
Well, hey, I guess that's going to do it for us here with the Miller Lite Q&A. Thanks everyone for listening to DK Sports Radio. For Chris Carter, I'm Matt Grubba. Hope you'll keep listening to all the great stuff we got coming for you.